Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of Child's Play 3. Look who's stalking. I definitely don't agree with Todd Camp here, who says it's the best Chucky yet. But I did have fun with the movie. I did like the film. I think it's a step down, a couple steps down from the second movie, as well as from the first movie. But I still think it's a fun sequel in its own right, and I do feel just like the second movie, I do think it's underrated. This one might be even more so underrated, even more underrated than the second film, because this one gets a lot of hate, a lot. And I don't necessarily get it. I mean, there are some problems that I have with the movie. For one, the pacing, it's a bit slow at times. The direction by Jack Bender, it's not necessarily the greatest. Um, there are certain shots that he does a good job with, like the ending in the fun house, the haunted house ride. But I don't know. There's not a lot of pizzazz. There's not a lot of flair. There's not a lot of style with his directing. It's very stock, static directing, and it feels like a TV movie. And uh, that's because he directed mostly TV movies. That's what he did. He directed episodes of TV shows, and he directed TV movies. Or so he is a television director. So it didn't. This one definitely didn't look as cinematic as Child's Play or Child's Play 2 did. So that was a problem I did have with the movie. But I did have fun with it though. Don Mancini came back and wrote the screenplay. This is a script that he was rushed to write. In fact, he started writing the screenplay before the second film was even released, apparently. So the studio was like really, really putting a lot of pressure on him. And Mancini himself causes this. He calls the film his least favorite because he felt he was out of ideas so soon after part two. I disagree. I mean, I'm sorry, Don, but your scripts for Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky and Curse of Chucky are a million times worse than your script for Child's Play 3. Child's Play 3 has some fun one-liners, like, don't fuck with the Chuck. Some fun stuff like that. And there's nothing like a good old strangulation to get the blood flowing. So there's just, there's some nice fun lines, and I liked the military school aspect a lot. That made it stand out. I liked Justin Whalin. I liked the character of Andy Barclay. I liked how they fast forwarded 8 years after the events of the second movie. And I liked a lot of the supporting cast. So I didn't necessarily, it didn't feel like a parody of itself, like Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky were, and I'm not a fan of that. I'm not, and I'll talk about that more in depth later when I review those movies. But I'm just not a fan of that aspect of Child's Play. So this is also the last film that was titled Child's Play. Child's Play 3. The later sequels just had Chucky in the title. This is according to IMDb, but apparently Peter Jackson was asked to direct the movie. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but it would have been interesting to see what he would have brought to a Child's Play film, because he does a great job with his horror films that he did for his production company Wingnut Films. Films like Bad Taste and Meet the Feebles. He did a puppet movie. He did a crazy horror puppet movie already in Meet the Feebles. So it would have been fun to see Peter Jackson's take on Child's Play. But we got Jack Bender instead, who it's not like he's as bad as his directing is as bad as somebody who's on a bender, but it's not really the best either. Apparently also Jonathan Brandis was considered for the role of Andy Barclay, which went to Justin Whalen. I would have been interested to see I really like Jonathan Brandis. May he rest in peace. It's really tragic what happened to him. I believe he committed suicide, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. But I've always liked him. I thought he was a fairly underrated child actor, and Justin Whalen did a solid job as well. But I would have liked to have seen what Jonathan Brandis would have brought to Child's Play 3. But like I said, Whalin was fine. He was one of my favorite. He was my favorite character out of the entire movie. I thought he was a likable kid. I thought the performance was good. So yeah, it seems like this movie is more remembered by people for its controversy, because there was some murder that happened. It was the center of a tabloid panic upon its release in Britain, because one newspaper, The Sun, even demanded copies of the film to be burned. And the reason why is because these journalists claimed that the film had influenced two young boys in the murder of a younger child, 2-year-old James Bulger, although it was later determined that neither had actually seen this film. So that's, hey, you were wrong, tabloids. You're jumping the gun there, but they do that a lot. Tabloids do that all the time. But this wasn't the only case that Child's Play, what 3 was connected to, or Child's Play. In addition to the well-known Jamie Bulger case in Britain, there was a lesser-known murder that was linked to the film. Suzanne Capper was tortured and before being set on fire. During the torture, she was forced to listen to "Hi, I'm Chucky, Wanna Play" by 150 volts maximum volume through headphones. One of those found guilty, Bernadette McNeely, would commence each torture session with the phrase "Chucky's coming to play," and soon the words themselves were enough to make Capper scream. That's horrible. That's just absolutely awful. But like I said before, when I was talking about the murder case and stuff that was being connected to Child's Play too, um, that's these are the films are not responsible for the behavior of these demented, crazy individuals. In fact, there's a quote directly from Tom Holland, which I think really sums things up really well. And I'm gonna find it real quick because I think it's really, yeah, this is a really good quote. But actually, this isn't from Tom Holland. This is from the end of Creepshow 2. It says, "Juvenile delinquency is a product of pent-up frustrations, stored-up resentments, and bottled-up fears. It is not the product of cartoons and captions, but the comics are a handy, obvious, uncomplicated scapegoat." In this case, you could apply that to movies. If the adults who crusade against them would only get as steamed up over such basic causes of delinquency as parental ignorance, indifference, and cruelty, they might discover that the comic books are no more a menace than Treasure Island or Jack the Giant Killer. So, really, you can just replace Jack the Giant Killer or Treasure Island with Child's Play 3. And it's a very, I think it fits really well with explaining how absurd it is to blame movies for the actions of individuals, the actions of people. Um, if these people were going to do such a horrific act, they were going to do it regardless. And it's not because of the movie. It's not the movie's fault. It never is. So, anyway, it is really too bad that this franchise, for some reason, has a connection to these really horrific murders and tortures and killings of other kids. I mean, that's really messed up, and it is really too bad that that is something that is tied into these series of films. But like I said earlier, I don't think it should be. These movies have nothing to do with even if these individuals are playing quotes from the movie, that doesn't mean that the movie is the reason why these people are getting killed and tortured. These kids were getting killed and tortured because of these sick individuals who wanted to torture and kill them. So, yeah, I know it's a serious note, but I had to mention that. I absolutely had to. And when it comes to the connection, there's a definite connection with a real life case with this movie. So the movie, it came out in August of 1991. It was rushed. It was pushed out in the theaters only less than a year after the release of the second movie. It made $20.5 million, which I think was a decent profit considering it was not, it didn't even, I don't think it cost $9 million to make. And it kind of shows this is definitely a cheaper production. And this is really noticeable with the Chucky puppet, which is probably the worst that Chucky has looked before he was scarred. If I'm going to talk about, scarred Chucky, then probably the worst would probably be Curse of Chucky. and whatever horrible makeup job they decided to put on his face earlier that made him look like a sweet transvestite from Sweet Transylvania. Yeah, sweet transvestite from Sweet Transylvania is just awful. It's a transsexual Transylvania over here. And I'll talk about that later. I don't want to talk. I don't want to go on a tangent about Curse of Chucky when I'm talking about Child's Play 3. But the effects by Kevin Yeager here, part of me is thinking, is it? I don't even know if it's really the puppet that was the problem. It might have been Jack Bender's direction. He just doesn't know how to direct animatronics, direct puppets. So it looked really fake. It looked rubbery. He also shot in a lot of dark lighting, which I didn't really understand. I mean, I guess he's trying to cover it up, but and yes, you need to have some sort of dark lighting in order to cover up the fact that it's not rubber. But I don't know, it's just the way that he shot it, or the way that, or the effect itself. I don't know what it was, but it looked really stiff. I didn't like the fact that the puppet just looked like it had the same look on its face constantly. And yeah, it was a step down from the excellent effects from Child's Play 2 and Child's Play. Um, Although there were some good effects here and there. I mean, when Chucky gets half his face cut off near the end is a pretty cool looking effect. Um, but yeah, this definitely did feel like a lower budgeted movie. And this film actually has a special place in my heart, regardless of, the lesser quality in comparison to the first two, because it's technically the first Child's Play film I ever saw, at least parts of it, and it's also one of the first horror films I actually ever had the pleasure of witnessing on TV. Now, I didn't see the whole thing; I saw bits and pieces of it, and the only reason why is because, well, when I was a kid my parents didn't want me to watch horror films, which is understandable, totally understandable. And so, but Child's Play 3 was showing on the Sci-Fi Channel, and this is before Sci-Fi was known as SYFY and showing all these shitty asylum films. But anyway, I would remember vividly the scene with the trash compactor and the scene when Chucky comes out of the package and talks to Tyler. So these are scenes that totally just burned in my memory, and I didn't really see the whole movie, but I saw bits and pieces of it because I would be watching the film as much as I could, and then I would flip back to cartoons. So it'd be like, if my parents would come in and they'd be like, what are you watching? I'm like, nothing. I'm not. I'm just watching cartoons. I'm just watching Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon. I'm not watching Chucky. I'm not watching Child's Play 3. Come on, I'm just watching cartoons. And then I just go back to Child's Play 3. But it's something a lot of people can relate to. We've all been there. We've all been there where we're, trying to, be sneaky and things like that. And, it's happened so long ago that it's not like my parents are gonna come in and punish me later, for something that happened when I was a kid. But it's just, I thought it was just, it's a fun thing. It's a fun story. It's something that, and ever since I saw, that quick little glimpse of Child's Play 3, it just really sparked this fire in me to watch more horror. And when I got to a certain age where I was old enough to watch whatever horror I wanted to, horror became like an all-you-can-eat buffet, and I couldn't get enough, and I still can't. And that, in large part, it's because of seeing just a few scenes of Child's Play 3. So I also remember the scene where the main the older guy who's a CEO who gets killed by Chucky. I think he gets strangled with a yo-yo. So I remember that scene as well. Um, so yeah, it it'll always have a special place in my heart for that. Now the movie, it has a decent. I thought it had a decent cast. I mean, Brad Dourif comes back as Chucky. He does a good job voiceover wise. Justin Whalin plays Andy Barclay. I liked him. I honestly thought he was the best, probably the best performer out of the whole movie. It's really a shame he didn't really go on to do that much after this. I mean, he did a few things, like he was in Lois and Clark, the TV series. I think he played Jimmy Olsen, and then of course he was regrettably one of the leads in that shitty Dungeons and Dragons movie. But you know, it is what it is. I also really liked Perrey Reeves as Kristen de Silva. I liked her. I liked that she was this girl who was at this military school, and she had this attitude about her. She was tough. But she was also cute, and she had good chemistry with Justin Whalin. I wish they had more scenes together, to be honest. Less scenes of Tyler and more scenes of Andy and Kristen. Because Tyler, honestly, Jeremy Silvers annoyed the hell out of me. I thought he was annoying and just not a fan of that character. Andrew Robinson was great in a little cameo as Sergeant Bachnick, this guy who is just obsessed with hair because he's the barber for the military school. It was nice to see Andrew Robinson, who was in Hellraiser, to see him in another horror franchise. Travis Fiennes was a great asshole as Lieutenant Colonel Brett C. Shelton. Um, he played a perfect prick, type of guy that you wanted to jump through the screen and punch him in the face. Uh, there's few other actors and actresses, but none of them are like really super. Well, there's this one, Whitehurst. Whitehurst is played by. Whitehurst is memorable to me because he looks like a spitting image of me when I'm shaven, when I'm clean shaven from the side. I mean, it's totally, it's almost identical. And I'm not as much of a pussy as Whitehurst is, but it's still, it's really kind of surreal to watch Child's Play 3, because then I'm like, when he gets his short hair, and when I have my short haircut and I'm clean shaven, he looks very similar to me, and it's that also does stand out to me. And I thought the kid did a good job at playing the role as well, Dean Jacobson. And actually, I thought his sacrifice was pretty admirable. That was an aspect of the script that I honestly did not see coming. And this script is actually a little bit more clever than it gets credit for in some ways. I mean, it is rehashing some of the same stuff. Oh, Chucky wants to get back into another body, but this time he's going to get into the body of Tyler, which did feel a little bit too much deja vu for my tastes. And then, that's where you get the line of dialogue. Chucky's gonna be a bro. Uh, but it's what I'm talking about when it comes to it's more clever than it gets credit for is the scenes are in the military school. For one, there isn't a lot of horror films that take place in a military school, so that was a nice touch. And the kind of the cleverness of how clever Chucky is, like when he goes in and replaces the red team's rifles, their paint balls, technically, their paint ammunition with real live rounds. That was actually a pretty clever idea, a really good concept. I love this scene when the one of the main guys, either the colonel or the general, one of the older guys who's helping run the school, and he sees Chucky, and he starts getting a heart attack, and before Chucky can like kill him. And I love this scene because I love how Brad Dourif delivers this line. He and it's totally what it's the kind of how the audience is thinking as well. Where it's like, oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. It's because he's just like, he does have a heart attack before Chucky can kill him. I thought that was actually a pretty clever line of dialogue. Um, so there's some fun moments. I mean, the scene where Chucky slits Andrew Robinson's throat. Presto, you're dead. It's definitely you. Yeah, it's an entertaining movie. I think it's. Yeah, I don't believe it's as bad as critics make it out to be. It does feel like diminishing returns, but it doesn't feel like so much so of diminishing returns to the point where it just feels like it's completely stale, at least for me personally. And it's a film it's grown on me. You know, for when I first saw it, I was disappointed because I had all these memories associated with a few scenes from the movie. And then when I saw the whole movie, it just wasn't as good as what I remembered. But then when I saw it again recently, and a few other times, before the most recent instance, I've grown to enjoy the film. I've grown to like it for what it is. I like the military school concept. I like Justin Whalen's performance as Andy Barclay. Chucky has some fun scenes, some fun moments, some decent bits of, gore, some nice little one-liners. And I really, really like the climax in the haunted house ride. I thought that was really clever, unique, and it was really well done, really well shot. The effects, just the way the whole haunted house ride looked, was it looked pretty top of the line, pretty high tech for the time. Um, it didn't look cheap, so I give the film that. It had a nice, finale where Chucky gets cut up to pieces by the fan. I love the lighting in that scene. That's another thing that really makes that scene really stand out, is the lighting in the sequence. The cinematography by John R. Leonetti I thought was actually really good for the most part. It's crazy that this same guy would go on and direct Mortal Kombat Annihilation, but yeah, it is what it is. The score, it was a bit too look at us, we're cool, with the rock music and the guitar riffs, and I didn't mind the opening credits music, but for the most part, it was a step down from Graham Revell's score from the second film, and Joe Renzetti's score from the first movie. It's probably one of the. I'd probably say I like the score more than Graham Revell's from Bride of Chucky, because that's disappointing considering it's the same guy who did the score for Child's Play 2, which I really like. Um, but Corey Lieros and Johnny D. Andrea, it's there. It's there. It's just I would be lying though if I said it's one of my favorite scores out of the franchise or one of my favorite horror scores. But like I said, I did like bits and pieces of it. The opening credit sequence I really like a lot. I think that's a amazing opening credit sequence. It's probably the scariest the film gets, is during this opening credit sequence where Chucky is being brought back to life because the good guy, the CEO, the good guys, yeah, the company that releases the good guys, Play Pals, decides, well, I'm going to go against the better judgment of some people, and because I'm a businessman and I'm here all about making money, we're going to bring back the good guys line. And in doing so, they bring back the same doll, that was Chucky. And they seem to do that. That was another thing. It's like Chucky keeps getting brought back in like the most like half-assed ways. Like, oh, the first movie, I was okay with the first movie because they're trying to prove something. They're trying to prove that this is all a bunch of crap. It wasn't, this is all in this kid's head. Everything is fine. That's a natural reaction to this type of scandal from a big company. The third film, though, it's just like, oh, it was there, so we brought it back. It was just kind of like, why? Why would you do that? Especially after this happened the second time. The first time with this doll would be, okay, all right, maybe it is in Andy's head. The second time around, I don't think you can make that argument anymore, especially if the doll has like all these doll arms shoved into it and it's melted by melted good guy plastic. I mean, and its head got blown off. You can't really make that argument anymore. But that's just me. It's a little nitpick. I mean, the story. This is the last time the story was at all sort of interesting to me because you have the military school aspect, and that made it different enough for me to get involved with it. But the later films in the franchise just had shitty stories, if you ask me, and there really wasn't much to them. And they just felt like, okay, we're just dragging this on a little bit too much. It did feel like, okay, the franchise has run its course. It's getting a little bit long in the tooth, but I can still have fun with it. But yeah, um, I don't really know what else to say about the film. Um, it's a pretty straightforward film. It's a lot, you know, you have Andy, who's now grown, he's now more than a few years older. He's in his teens, and he's gets sent to a military school, and he befriends some people there, and Chucky ends up being delivered there. And the movie actually, you know, Chucky kills the CEO of the Play Pals company, who strangles him with a yo-yo, and then Chucky ends up at the military school because originally he was going to try to get revenge against Andy, but then Tyler comes involved, and that's one problem. I'm like, I would have just preferred if it was just Chucky wanting to get revenge on Andy. You know, he killed him like 2 times. You know, he's fucked up his plans. I would prefer just a down and dirty, just straightforward revenge flick for Chucky. Chucky comes back and he just wants revenge on Andy, and that means like killing everybody in the military school. So be it. I mean that I actually would have liked more than rehashing the same story from the first movie, but instead of young Andy, you have young Tyler, and it just felt really. There's like I said, a lot of deja vu. It's a severe case of deja vu. But you know, there's some fun stuff. The stuff with the guns being replaced with live rounds, the uh, the climax in the haunted house ride, the it's a few one-liners here and there, some decent bits of gore like a throat slit when Andrew Robinson gets his throat slit. Um, but it was but it was a little bit there was a little bit lacking. I like it though. I think it's an above average film. I don't think it's just okay. I think it's above average because I like it. I like it for the characters. I like it for Andy. I like it for Whitehurst. I like it for Kristen, for De Silva. And Brad Dourif, I thought he did fine. I don't think this is his worst performance as Chucky. I don't think this is the worst Child's Play movie. I think there's much worse than Child's Play 3. So I respectfully disagree with Brad when it comes to that. And but yeah, I don't know what else to say about the movie, except it was rated out of 5 stars. I give it 3.5 out of 5. It's, like I said, above average movie. I think it's a step down from the second film because I gave that 5 out of 5. I don't find anything wrong with it. And the first movie's a 4.5 star flick. So, I mean, this is definitely a couple steps down, but, I still think it's a solid sequel in its own right. It's better than it gets credit for. It's got you have some fun. You got the memorable one-liner, "Don't fuck with the Chuck," and it's just a good premise, good setting. Not necessarily a good premise, but a good setting and some nice characters, some decent bits of gore, and overall, you could do a lot worse. The directing could have been better. The score could have been better. And you could have had a little bit better story. But overall, I think it's a good sequel. It's a good time, and yeah. Thanks for watching my review of Child's Play 3, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.